Good day, everybody. This is Claude Bowles. You might remember that the other day, uh, Atheist Junior and Big Bad Mama did a video. I participated on it, and it was about Kent appealing to the authorities where he lives to pave the road outside his compound. And funny that been there for years. He's only just decided that he wants to use the county taxes, which is quite ironic, to pave the road outside his place because of the dust nuisance. Well, of course, Dan Podsey gets on the stream and makes all these ridiculous comments. So I thought we might actually read some and read them and weep, I suppose, as they say. Because they really are so ridiculous. Okay, so he says in one of his comments, and I put the top on the screen, did anyone here do a Google search before they made this stupid video? Wow, I guess the kettle got a little charred. I don't know what that means when I called the pot black. If you guys need help Googling the health risks of breathing test, I'd be happy to help. Thanks for your offer, Podsey, Dan. But your record at actually researching anything isn't actually particularly good. Oh, we're so offended, he says, when somebody talks about children being hurt. Look at the disgust and lack of care for the many children that live and come to this property. No, we don't say that dust is bad. We say that that dust isn't bad. It is a problem, but he's a newcomer to this place and he wants to use people's taxes to pay for this paving. He also doesn't care about driving around recklessly in his side-by-sides and jeeps or whatever else, spreading dust everywhere, does he? No, it's just the dust on the county road. So, and as far as Dan expressing worry about the kids, Dan didn't express similar worry when Kent's good friend, Jones, goes to DAL, let alone the trustee of his ministry, Brady Byram. We won't go into all that sort of thing there. And then Dan goes on to say, more education for the haters. The gravel being oiled out is for the purpose of construction. Therefore, any material coming from that gravel pit is under the law. The mega corporations making millions would love this video because, after all, according to these clowns, I think he means us, just dust. He says just is not a pollutant. I wish he could actually take some, take the time to get things right, but hey, it's Dan. Just is not a pollutant. If this was the case, you would have to pave every county road. No, I would tell the fools. Only roads, RHODES, like as in the surname roads, that are connected to construction materials sites. This is golden material for those to throw stones from glass houses. My God, this man is so ignorant and just keeps on opening his mouth and doubling down. If he wasn't such a horrible person that would never admit when he makes a mistake, most of us, when we make a mistake, will admit to it, but not this Dan guy. No, it's always someone else's fault. Then I'd be leaving him alone. But this is just horrendous stuff. It's just gross ignorance. The connected to construction materials sites, those public roads are not bound by that rule, and it's explained many times. If you want to believe Kent's legal team, let's go back and have a look, Dan, and see how many times Kent's legal team have been right. I'd suggest it's very, very little, minute even. And of course, if that was the case, then no unpaved road could ever exist, because you could be certain that on one unpaved road at any particular time, someone would have gone along with construction traffic. So it's just total nonsense from Dan. He is so desperate to support his mate, Kent. Esau Him says the rule of a construction site dust clearly can't apply to gravel roads, or there would be no gravel roads allowed. Well, that's actually logical. That's something that Dan could learn. Blah, blah, blah. Esau also says, phony Dr. Kent clearly can't believe in health risks of dust. If he did, he wouldn't stir up dust with his silly tours in side-by-sides and jeeps. Very good point. Um, Dan says it's a construction materials site. Even gravel roads inside of it are under the law. That's just rubbish once again. But let's see Dan go to his lawyer and take a lawsuit out against the county if he's so right. There's something about Dan's thing about Dawkins. We've been through that before. I then say the law Kent erroneously quotes doesn't apply to dirt roads. If it did, there would be no dirt roads. It does apply to construction sites, actually, such as DAL. Incidentally, it's interesting. I wonder if it complies. Note how Kent is not concerned about the plenty of dust generated by his tours. He is a hypocrite. Okay, someone called Mimosad said you can't, meaning Dan, can't complain about children getting hurt defending a place where Chris Jones has an open invite, he says, to host child beauty pageants. I think that's an exaggeration, but definitely Chris Jones has an open invite. This convicted molester has an open invite to go to meet his good friend Kent at DAL anytime. That's been well documented. Dan says to someone, thank you so much for a question. I already admitted how stupid I was for miscomprehending the article and also cleared it up. I've yet to hear that yet. All I've heard is lots of excuses. On the other hand, these were the fools who chastised me and said I lied, and I didn't Google it before I went live with it. I don't recall them saying that last bit about Googling it. The three stooges here, which he refers to as me and Big Bad Mama, and of course he's obviously referring to AJ, did a live show slandering someone and didn't Google it first. What? Just, not all of us rely on Google. Some of us actually have a certain inborn ability to work things out on our own account. So I find that rather foolish as well. Dan says to Claude, that's me, are you the bald stooge? Don't know what that's got to do with it. They are gravel roads. Did you Google it before you got? I mean, goodness, you don't care that the pollution it causes is harmful for human beings. And even though Kent is there and many children are there, nobody said that whatsoever, Dan, and you know it. And what we have pointed out is the hypocrisy of Kent running tours himself that stir up dust, and also at the same time wanting the county to use taxes to pave a road when Kent time and time again has come out as a bit of a sovereign type person, and he certainly doesn't like paying taxes. And as you know, he was convicted of tax crimes. So I think that shows that one up. Blah, blah, blah. Then Dan comes back again. This is what I said about you guys and fantasies which have fallen hand in hand with the theory of evolution. Oh, so that's come into it now. Because it's true, because it could be this or could be that. Now, you'd have to be, how the heck you determine what he's actually trying to say there. I don't know. I'll read it again. This is Dan Posey at Claude. This is what I said about you guys and fantasies, which fallen hand in hand with the theory of evolution, because it's true, because it could be this or could be that. What on earth does that mean? Goodness me. The law doesn't include dirt roads. Did you research the law before this clown? So no, I have the ability to read a law and perfectly well understand that law and know that it doesn't apply to dirt roads, or there wouldn't be any. I don't know many more times you need to be told. I'll give you the choice. Do you want to be the clown judge or the clown prosecutor? He's deliberately misspelling it because it's his joke. The unfortunate thing is that Dan's language is just so appalling that um, you can't tell whether he's actually joking or not, or he's just incomprehensible. Dan then says, I do give you kudos, Claude. None of the other stooges were brave enough to pop up their heads. To which I reply, well, not only that Dan constantly grovels to and defends Kent, which of course is true, and then I say also that my general knowledge means I don't need to Google, many things. I can ascertain that construction site dust rules don't apply to dirt roads. But look, if I'm wrong, Dan can go and get the legal opinion from one of his or Kent's legal dream team, and we'll just see how that goes. Claude, I do reply to that comment eventually of that the other stooges weren't brave enough to turn up, and I say they're definitely brave enough, Dan. Actually, they've given up engaging with people who can't understand basic logic, and that would appear to be Dan. So, very interesting. Dan later on at some stage or earlier says, this is a clown show, but I can help and educate the circus performers. I don't think you could help and educate anybody, Dan, with all due respect, which isn't very much. Dusters can sit herd hazardous. So dusters can sit herd hazardous, and when you add particulates from brakes, etc., it is a carcinogenic pollutant. What care about the planet and pollution, even around places and people you hate? That's a novel idea. That is just totally bizarre again, as Esau then says, Esau him. What about the tours that Kent does several times a day, which kick up huge amounts of dust? And I won't say what he calls Dan there, but he said Dan fails again. Dan then says they have now declared that dust is not a pollutant, and this show is educational. We learned about the name of the wayward dust. It's certainly not the major part of what was talked about. Different people. Oh, Dan again. I was looking for some deep content. I found content. I was looking for some deep content. I found content that is exploring planet savings information. This is definitely not evidence of Hovind hate, because we know it is Dr. Hovind truth is. It's actually nice to watch a comedy with the Three Stooges spending time thinking they're saving the planet. That's a little bit hard to understand also, but Claude, that's me of course, says that Dan is incapable of looking for, let alone understand deep content, and I think that's proven by the quotes I've been reading. The aim of this video, I say, is to save in particular the local people from Hovind. He espouses sovereign citizens' views and is a convicted tax criminal, yet wants others to pay for the paving of the road next to his compound. A misspelling of compound, but for a particular reason. And Dan says, I do understand that dust is considered a pollutant. The guy does take a long time. Hey, it's only kids of cold numbers. What? It's only kids of cold numbers, I was told. I should have Googled information on the talk of the show. If he's saying that kids don't matter, I guess he's referring to Mr. Hovind's comments after the child drowned there, when he said, hey, the other kids had a blast. And of course, so it didn't seem to matter, and perhaps it doesn't matter to Dan either. Then he says, what fools you guys are. A fool in his heart says there's no God. So now it's all about whether there's a God or not. I mean, I don't know whether there's a God or not has anything to do with dust on roads, and a person who has been convicted of tax fraud asking to have the county use taxes to pay for his road, which is just quite frankly a joke. I'm still open for you, Dan says, asking me why God is so bad and letting children be eaten by bears. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so that's probably about it that I really want to talk about. I just find it bizarre, but I just can't let it go on. This sort of nonsense go unchallenged. And I do hope that you read the comments from Dan Potsy on uh, on the actual stream, the video put up by AJ about Kent Hovind and dust and the dust problem, and see what we say and see what Dan says. I find it truly bizarre. Goodbye, folks. Until we meet again. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, I suppose.